That is. All right, so welcome to today's cooking demo here at the Lebanon Senior Center. Today we are celebrating pumpkin. I know in our newsletter I've made the joke it's more than pie. People think, well, how do you cook pumpkin? What do you do with pumpkin? They go pie, pumpkin pie. Maybe pumpkin bread, maybe a pumpkin muffin. Really what you hear nowadays is pumpkin spice, right? Pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice that. Generally all relates to pumpkin in a sweet format, cinnamon, sugar, it's more desserty flavored. Well, our friend pumpkin is a squash, and we use squash in a lot of different ways in the kitchen. It's a really great vegetable. People, again, we think about pumpkin, we think about sweet, desserty things, not healthy vegetable things. And pasta is on the fence. I mean, is it really healthy? We can feel guilty about the carbs, but hey, throw some veggies in it. Then you can feel a little bit better about it. So pumpkin and other squashes are great. They're high sources of fiber. A lot of different nutrients, vitamins, and minerals are in squash. And pumpkin, especially for a lot of our pets as well as people, great for digestion. There are so many great attributes for pumpkin. It's a digestive aid. So if you have a sensitive stomach or aren't feeling well, pumpkin's a great addition. A lot of veterinarians, will suggest adding a little pumpkin. But you have to be careful. It can't be pumpkin pie filling, because there is. If you go over to the canned goods department in the grocery store, you'll see pumpkin pie filling, and you'll see 100% pumpkin pie. You want the pumpkin, just pumpkin, because the stuff that's got all the add-ins, a lot of that becomes dangerous for your pets. I have made dog treats with pumpkin. They absolutely love it. My dog's name is Pumpkin. That is not, I do love pumpkin, but it's not an adoration. She's just that color. So it worked really well. So we're going to use pumpkin in a pasta dish. And at first my brain was like, that sounds really weird to have pumpkin in a pasta. But then the more I thought about my favorite ravioli, happens to be butternut squash ravioli. So why am I having this difficult time making that leap from pumpkin pasta to butternut squash pasta? So, come on, Rebecca, it's just a word. Get over it. Pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin. It's not just for dessert, people. So today we are going to do a pumpkin pasta. So the pumpkin isn't going to go into a filling. We are going to use a rigatoni, which I tossed the box. You could probably use another pasta that you like. The general rule of thumb with pastas, if you're going to have a heavier sauce, you want a chunkier pasta so it grabs there's ridges and holes and things to actually get mixed in with the sauce to hold on to it, so that you're not just eating pasta and then the sauce is left at the bottom of the bowl. Which is a good rule of thumb to have. Not that pasta needs to have too many rules. I like pasta. It likes me. Body by carbs every day. So we already got the pasta cooked. So it's hanging out in a pot waiting to be brought into the game a little bit later. But you do want to reserve a bit of the liquid. So this is pasta water. Not uncommon for folks who are doing some Italian cooking to hold on to some of that pasta water because it gets some of the glutens, kind of acts as a thickener. So instead of just using regular water that's going to super thin out your sauce, using pasta water gets some of that flavor from the pasta and helps keep it thicker instead of just loosening it up. So reserve yourself some water, then drain your pasta, because trying to catch it after the fact, after it's already in the strainer, gets a little difficult. So I have a couple of tablespoons of olive oil starting to heat up in my pan over here. I always love trying to play with the portable burners because it's the fun game of, is that actually warm enough? We'll find out. So we are going to crisp up some sage. So this kind of becomes just a little bit of a topping. Sage and pumpkin go really well together. You start thinking of fall, Thanksgiving kind of flavors. Sage is definitely one of those. So you want some sage leaves. You can find them in the produce section or grow your own. Harass a neighbor that's a gardener, see if they've got some fresh sage. And then you're just going to kind of drop them in to the oil. Mine's not quite hot enough because I don't see them starting to crisp. There it goes. Now it's starting to go. So we're just going to fry up some of our lovely little leaves here just to make them a little crispy. This is where if I try to do this at home, they crisp faster because I know my stove. And I already can tell that this table must not be even because all of the oil is on this side of the pan and nothing's over there. So that doesn't help a whole lot when it's not doing things evenly. Alrighty. Dun, dun, dun. Just do some of the bigger ones. There we go. See if I can't get some of the other ones to coat that are on the other side of the pan. There's a sizzle. It's trying. Want it those darker colors. It should still be rather green. Just gets darker, loses some of its, I don't know, its fresh vibrance. They do kind of soak up the oil. If the oil is a nice, good temperature to begin with, they'll absorb a little less oil, but it's going to happen. Come on, you just drop these poor green leafy things in a thing of oil, so they're gonna absorb it. Yeah. Sounds a bit like a crunchy leaf on the sidewalk. Yeah. You know you're doing a good job. I'm trying to make sure I get the little bits out so that they don't get bitter. I think I just chased it around the pot. It went somewhere. Oh, there it is. So just trying to make sure I get them all out because, again, don't want the bitter flavor of overdone sage in our sauce. So I'm going to turn it down just a little bit because I'm not going to be frying the rest of these ingredients. I am going to keep that oil in the pan. And I'm going to get our onion. So the recipe calls for shallot. I couldn't find shallot. So if you do find a shallot, please feel free to finely chop a shallot. Otherwise, grab onion. Onion will cheat a little bit for the sake of time. You can certainly soften your onion up to a caramelized state if you prefer. As onions caramelize, that they get more mellow. So if you're not big into onion, don't like the flavor of onion, you can cook it till it's that nice golden color and translucent and let it go. If you like onion, you want that little bit more punch, don't let it go as far and keep a bit more bite to it. And your roasted garlic, or if you're pressing your garlic, go ahead and press it right into the pan. We'll get that going. Some very traditional flavors people like together. Onion and garlic, right? Who doesn't like onion and garlic? Good for the heart. Absolutely good for the heart, the immune system, keeping away vampires, right? We're in October. You never know what you're going to run into, right? Yeah, especially around here at the senior center, right? All right, ha, Rebecca. All right, so we got our onion, we've got our garlic going in the saucepan, salt and pepper. Again, I'm going to look because I would just be shaking the dickens out of my pepper shaker because I like pepper. So they're using very little, and for the sake of folks around here, I probably won't use too much of either. So I'm going to go with about 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and I'm probably going to do something similar with the salt, just a smidge, maybe 1/8 teaspoon of salt because I'm watching my salt intake, but we're also going to be adding Parmesan, right? So something that's it's supposed to be 100% organic, but I might have had it. It's just pumpkin. So I bought 100% pure pumpkin. It is just pumpkin. There's nothing else in here according to the label. So, yay.
And if you had a fresh pumpkin, you would pre-cook it and chew it before you
Yes, you can absolutely cook your fresh pumpkin and cook it down, roast it in the oven, bake it down, and then use that. You don't have to use tinned pumpkin. It probably tastes a little bit better. Everything fresh tastes a little bit better, a little more vibrant, a little less tinny. But I must say, but if you don't want to do that, or if you don't have access to the pumpkin, or if it's spring and the pumpkins aren't just coming off the vines and you want this dish, by all means, get a can of pumpkin. All right, so then we're going to go ahead and we are going to add in a cup of our canned pumpkin, which is, I'll say a 15th, so it's almost 2 cups. I was going to almost cheat and just put half of it in there. You guys don't mind if I cheat, right? So the can is 15 ounces and cup is 8. So we're just going to put just a smidge more than half of our pumpkin in here. That's about right.
My sister makes really good pies.
And what, did you bring one to share with the class?
Oh, I didn't. She didn't have
Oh, darn it. I was hoping I was going to get some pie today,
She's a
too.
very good cook and baker.
Mmm.
I just bought 2 pie pumpkins. She's made some delicious fruit pies, Becca.
I believe it. Hijack. All right, so we've got our pumpkin in there.
She's with her son, and we get flour everywhere.
Whoop, was one of the best parts, is getting, having fun making a mess with somebody else. All right, so I'm putting a fourth of a cup of heavy cream in there. Yeah, it's just a little luxury, right? And if you're going to ask me about substitutes for healthier dairy products, I don't have the answer on this one. I'm going to say I just don't know that you can do, the oats or the other various versions of milks or other things to do it in this particular recipe. This might just be one that you just kind of need to, binge with. All right, and nutmeg. You put about 1/8 of a teaspoon in there. If you really like the warm notes of nutmeg, you can put a little more in there. It's kind of really to your taste and your liking. One of my little secrets, I actually put nutmeg in my lasagna, which at first, when somebody first gave me that piece of advice, or when I first saw it in some recipes, I was like, why are they putting nutmeg in the ricotta? That doesn't make sense to me at all. You know what? You don't really go, ooh, this tastes like nutmeg. There's just a little something in the background that just kind of, what is that? There you go. So sometimes our little spices that we think of just for baking can be used in our cooking as well. Sometimes it's cultural, right? We get stuck with certain flavors that we're accustomed to, and when people do other flavors, we just kind of have to sit back for a moment and go, that seems odd, but it tastes good, so let's go with it. And then I think our water is on that side. So I don't know if I'm going to tilt it so you can see it. I'm not worried about pouring out because it's really thick. Oh, it's thick. So that's how thick it is, and that's why we kept some of our water, right? So we can control how loose it gets. So we did get our shallot, our onion is in there, our garlic's in there, our salt and pepper's in there, our pumpkin is in there, our Parmesan cheese. So this is where we get to have a little fun. I got the nice big chunky stuff. We're going to add just a little shimmy shake into the sauce, just a tad. Okay, just to let it melt in there, to start getting some of those flavors down into the sauce before we start thinning it out with our pasta water. Want to give it a chance to melt a little bit in there and distribute amongst our sauce flavors. And that is not going to thin it out at all. Cheese thickens, cheese doesn't thin. And then we're going to come over for our water. And so I'm just going to put a little bit in and then give it a nice stir, incorporate it. And I wish I could say there's a perfect answer on exactly how much to give, but depending on the day, depending on the heat, depending on all kinds of variables will dictate exactly how much you want to get. And again, personal preference. So you can see it's already getting thinner, but again, I think I want to go thinner than that, because there's something about sticking to the pasta, and then there's something about it, looking glumpy. I'm sure that's a technical term, glumpy, and Carla Joy can give us the word origin or something. All right, again, starting to really thin out. I'm gonna go just a little bit further. I want it nice and saucy looking. There's people who are saucy looking around here, but for wholly other meanings of the word. All right, there we go. So we're still kind of thick, but it's going to be easy to coat the pasta, right? So that's looking pretty. And this is where you get to choose your own adventure a little bit. Not today, because I'm choosing it for you.
Wouldn't this be good when you're having mac and cheese to sneak some of that pumpkin in and people come and, oh, and you can taste it.
There's all kinds of things you can sneak pumpkin into and people not know. You know, there are mothers for generations that have been sneaking vegetables into foods, and as long as you don't make it look like the food, if you puree it up, if you make it so it's invisible, they do not know they're eating it. Pumpkin is one of those things. I saw recipes for pumpkin, adding pumpkin to hummus in dip form. Again, you've got all kinds of different pasta ways of doing it. People add pumpkin to chili.
Well, I put carrot in my spaghetti sauce, but if I grate it, then people can see the carrot. But if I get it fine enough, then it blends in. But I think pumpkin would be just as good.
So yeah, all kinds of dishes, chilies and soups and different things. You can just drop some in. It's a great thickening agent, right? I mean, it's pretty thick substance, so it's going to add something that's going to add an interesting mouthfeel because it kind of has that kind of coated kind of feeling to it. So it's going to be really interesting no matter what you add it to. I'm sneaking out of range to come grab our rigatoni. And I know no one can see through the stock pot. So I did grab a big glass bowl. So I'm going to dump our rigatoni. So this is rigatoni. Rigatoni is this nice chunky pasta. I always think it's fun. It just looks fun, right? So this is one of my cheating techniques. So you get a bowl big and full of pasta, and then you go to try to stir in the sauce. What happens? It ends up everywhere, right? Yes. So I'm going to put about half of it back in the pot after it's kind of had been fluffed. Then I'm going to come over here with the sauce. And I'm going to pour it over there. Most of it. I left a little in the pan. And now I'm going to give our pasta a little stir here. Oh, I got sidetracked with pasta and I forgot the choose your own adventure part. So the reason I said choose your own adventure is obviously a lot of our ingredients are smooth. But that onion, that shallot that you use is going to have a little chunk to it. So if you want something completely smooth, you can pour your sauce in the blender, or if you've got an immersion blender or some way, go ahead and run it through there, and it will, really blend up those chunks and incorporate it into the sauce. So you'll have a completely smooth, velvety sauce without any chunk to it except the pasta. But if you are a free spirit and don't mind a little texture of the pasta, or the onion, you can certainly leave it in there whole. That's what I did today, not just because I didn't want to have to try to hunt down a blender and bring it to work. I know that we have an immersion blender floating around. Yeah, I saw that. Man down. In the back storage room, but it doesn't see the light of day often. So I was like, nah. We'll leave a little bite to it. There you go. If you do have someone in your life who has nut issues and is allergic, that's why we didn't prepare the gremolata today. I was saying that earlier. I've had run-ins with some people having allergies. Nuts is a pretty popular one. So I did not do the gremolata. Gremolata being just kind of a topping to go on a sprinkle. The gremolata recommended for this recipe involves pine nuts and grated lemon peel. So it's going to add a texture and just a fresh, little pizzazz to the pasta. You certainly don't need to have it. If your family is proven to be nutty, they can have nuts. Nobody has a problem with it. You can certainly do the pine nuts. I also think hazelnuts would be really nice So grinding up some hazelnuts and using those instead of pine nuts, which in our area, easier to find. We're kind of hazelnut orchards all around us, so you might be able to find some of those a little bit easier. And so that starts to be what it looks like. And you can come back and, you know, just get your black pepper out, because you got to make it pretty looking, right? Like that. And then those leaves that we did earlier. I mean, you could sit here and really dress something up and leave some whole leaves around, and people can break them up themselves. But I'm going to go ahead and crunch. See if they start falling apart. Just kind of sprinkling them around.
You make that too at home?
I do. And I like squash. Not so much the zucchini. That to me is a bit bitter. But I do like yellow squash is one of my favorite things. I like to use a lot of yellow squash and bell pepper and like asparagus, especially during the summer. I'll put them in little foil packets and I will put them on the grill. So if I'm cooking something else, I can have my veggies ready to go, and then I didn't have to clean anything because it's in aluminum foil, which cleans up really nicely. And add a little lemon pepper or something. It's really simple food sometimes is, I think, the best. All right, and of course I promised.
Would red bell pepper add something to that other than pretty color?
Well, obviously it would add nutrients. It wouldn't compete a whole lot. Its flavor is going to be a little bit more bolder than the pumpkin.
I mean, just slightly. A bit too.
You could definitely add it in there. I like to do a soup that's got squash, tomato, and bell pepper, and then I run it through the blender. So it's a really smooth soup.
Almost like tomato soup.
It's pretty much a blended vegetable soup without any pasta or grains in it, and it's delicious. But roasted red pepper, I love me some roasted red pepper. All right, so I will show it off to the camera. Ooh, all right. And then the best part is you guys get to eat some. Yay! All right.